awesome. Working.
They had no swords.
Right. This awesome. Flexi, tight.
They have no swords.
That's awesome. Flexi, tight. Consistency.
No.
Tight.
I think they're called a spear. Maybe knights. Spear.
Here, tight. Otiose. Salvete, barbari. Non è lingua laquaris. No? Oh. Isn't it lucky then in the last 2,000 years that someone has learnt the other's language? That'll be me then. Since you barbarians don't speak a civilised tongue like Latin. Because when you do you know why we call you barbarians? You know why? When you talk, all I hear is ba 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 ba.
Bárbaros.
Thank you. Bar. Right, we are members of the Roman Military Research Society. We are going to do a little, I was going to say a short demonstration, but I do tend to waffle on. Feel free, therefore, if you had enough of me talking, to wander off yourselves, it's absolutely fine. We're going to do a little demonstration. We're going to look at the soldiers' equipment first, and then show you a few of the formations that we can use in a battlefield scenario. The arena is not ideal for this because of the sloping side. You haven't got a great deal of room to do it. But hey, battlefields are not always lovely flat plains, are they? So I'm going to ask the soldiers in a moment to disperse out to the quarters around the line here, so you can see who's going on. If the signature stays there, each of these guys is wearing and why they use it and how they use it. I say, absignis discredite. Let's get rid of the obvious or the elephant in the room, i.e. me. I am portraying a centurion, a centurio of a particular legion, and I'll come to that in a little while. You know, or you should be able to recognise a centurion, because as far as we can tell from what's been left us from the histories, centurions seem to wear a crest on their helmet permanently, so the soldiers can always see where he is and recognise him, but it goes from side to side, or it's like ear to ear. That is not to say that the soldiers here can't have crests on their helmets. Most of them are fitted with some kind of holder for a crest. But we wouldn't necessarily, or rather they wouldn't necessarily wear them in battle. It's something an enemy could grab hold of, and you don't want that. But because I need to be seen, I carry on wearing the crest. I get paid big bucks. I have to take the risks. Comes with the job. But I've also stood in the centre, in the front line of the century itself, which I'm sure you're all familiar now, comprises 80 fighting soldiers. 80 soldiers, not 100 as is often supposed. That is, however, there are probably 100 men that the centurion commands, but the other 20 could well be slaves or soldiers about to retire or move on to other things. So, the crest is one distinctive thing. In the 1st century AD, when we first came to Britain for our extended stay or our extended holiday with you, centurions were wearing ocria or greaves. It's a sort of throwback to an earlier time. The soldiers, you'll notice, are not wearing any leg defences. Not yet. In a few years, or a few years' time, Roman legions will find themselves in a place called Dacia, or modern-day Romania, where the enemy are using nasty, horrible, curved, scythe-like blades to chop through our helmets, through our arms, and through our legs. So amazingly, greaves are reintroduced for the ordinary soldier as well. The other third symbol of the centurion is this, the stick. We know it as a vicus, or vine stick. Now, it's not necessarily from a grapevine. It could be any sort of stick. This one, rather usefully, has had a vine grow round it to create that gnarled shape. What we do know is they're about this tall, and they often have a bulbous head on the end. This is a symbol of my authority as the commander of a century. It is also the means by which I will instill discipline in these guys. You make a mistake, I correct it with the stick. Got it? Right. So that's what this is for. So you see these bits, you know that this is the person in charge. So I'll come back to what I'm wearing in a little while. The next character I'm going to introduce you to is a part, if you like, of the command team. It's this guy here, the big bear. He is called a signifer. It means standard bearer. Every century has a standard. This happens to be our standard. It has certain symbols on it. Sometimes it's a spearhead, sometimes it can be a hand. The Capricorn, the goat here, and the sun and the moon. Well, the Capricorn is a symbol associated with the Emperor Augustus. So we're aligned to him. Up the top there on the plate, it says COH and then 3 letter I's. That means we are part of the 3rd cohort of the Legion. You now can also know that the discs on a centurial standard, the maximum we've ever seen, are 6. Conveniently, there are 6 centuries in a cohort. So now you already know that you're facing members of the 3rd century of the 3rd cohort. He wears a bearskin because he likes getting hot in the summer. No, it's that we don't really know why they wear bearskins, but they also wore leopard skins, lion skins, wolf skins. Perhaps it's some kind of totem or imbued with the spirit of the animal. But I'm pretty certain if you saw him emerging out of the mist with a big bear on his head, growling at you, you might be encouraged to run away before he gets you. Because he's cut to carry that standard, he can't carry the big shields that the rest of us are carrying. So his is a smaller, round shield, which we call a palmer. A palmer. It is enough for him to be able to defend that standard. If he loses it, he's in big trouble, as are we all. So he will defend to the death that standard. We also will defend to the death that standard. When Caesar came to Britannia in 54 or 55 BC, the 10th Legion standard bearer threw his standard out onto the beaches because the soldiers were not happy to get out the boats. As soon as he'd done that, he went over the side of the ship. The rest of his troops followed him because their honour was now lying at the mercy of the Britons. So they had to recover that standard. So this is our signifer, a standard bearer. Alrighty. So moving on. We'll start briefly with the weaponry. The first thing I'm going to draw your attention to is the big blue thing that everybody is carrying, with the exception of our signifer. It's called a scutum in Latin. So a group of them are called scuta. That's the plural. You have a scooter?
So do I.
Excellent. Where is it? What? There? Oh, interesting. What strange shape. Anyway, you'll notice that these shields are big. They're rectangular. They are curved. They are designed to wrap around your body and provide you with a lot of protection. All right. So you might also notice that my shield and that one, I think, have got curved edges. Curved edges. Once upon a time, the Roman shield, that curve followed all the way up and over, top and bottom. Those were the sort of shields that Caesar's troops would have been carrying. But if you march from distances, that gets in the way. It starts clipping at the back of your heel. So the soldiers had a simple solution. They cut the top and bottom off, but left the curved sides. Then, of course, time moved on and someone must have realised, why are we making them with curved sides when it's much easier to make them with straight sides? And then you have the rectangular scutum that is popular in popular culture. So, big blue thing. This is not just for defence. We can use it in attack. For example, you have a hairy barbarian running towards you, screaming at you with his sword raised. You allow him to come on, and then you present this bottom part of the shield and smash him in the face with it. That ruins his day and his gorgeous looks. Failing that, if we're in close contact with the enemy, and we will be, we can use the bottom edge of the shield to slam it down your shin, where there is not a lot of muscle and protection, and into your feet, probably breaking your feet. You will now become a hoplite. Or you might notice that there's a big lump of metal on the front. We call it an umbo. You might call it in English a boss. It's there because to carry the shield, you need to cut a hole in it for your hand to fit. If there wasn't something to protect your hand, how tempted would you be to try and cut fingers off? If you do that, we drop our shields. The next thing, of course, is you try and stick a nice sharp pointy thing in it. So we have protected our hands with that thing there, which now rather conveniently means I've got a fist behind an iron glove. I can punch you with it. Or, when we go into a fighting stance, the soldiers will actually lower their body weight down. You know this from release from the time. The body is lowered down, the shield is kept close to the shoulder and the knee so it doesn't go clattering into you. When we come charging into you, that means this is low down on your body. Got the idea? It's below your centre of gravity. It will knock you off your feet. Bearing in mind that each one of these guys is probably wearing up to about 30 kilograms of extra equipment on their body. So for me, that means there's 120 kilos of angry Roman charging at you. You'll also notice that there are some symbols on here and some writing. That anybody who goes to school, because the bigger people don't, so they won't know the answer, what LED might mean.
Legion.
Sorry?
Legion.
Excellent. I told you, educated man. Legion. So which legion are we the 3rd century of the 3rd cohort of? Clearly in front of you. What is it? 14, absolutely. Are you familiar with your Roman numerals?
Yeah.
Yes,
The
it's
I
wrong.
represents
Yeah.
1, the X represents 10.
One on
So
B.
when you have a larger number like 10 followed by smaller ones, like the ones, you add the small ones to the big one. So 10 plus 1 plus 1 plus 1 plus 1 is 14. If you prefer, we could do it by actual numbers. Quator, quinque, six, septem, octo, nove, decem! Quator, decem, 4 and 10 makes what? Exactly. So the Latin word for 14 is quattordecime. So our full title is Legio Quattordecime Gemina Martia Vitricis. Martia Vitricis are
14.
battle honours. granted to us by the Emperor Nero. Martyr comes from the god of war. It means warlike. Victrix. Well, have you got a word in English that sounds a bit like Victrix?
Victory!
Excellent. Victory. And who is the goddess of victory? What's her name? Nice guess, but no. Same person? Nike. Ah, who's the Greek? Hello, Greek person. Nike is indeed the Greek version of the goddess of victory. But the Romans copied some of the Greek gods and goddesses. So Athena became our Minerva. Nike, well, you'll kick yourself when I tell you the answer.
Adidas.
Sorry? It's what, sorry? Adidas. Ah, yes. No. No. The goddess of victory is, of course, Victoria. Come on, Britons. Oh, dear. Victoria. Now, if you ever saw a statue of the goddess of victory, she's portrayed with wings on her back. Anyone spotted any wings? Oh yeah, on the shield. So these wings on here represent the goddess of victory. In other words, we have victory on our side. And does anybody know what these are? Lightning bolts. And which of the gods chucks lightning bolts around? No! Zeus, another Greek.
Jupiter.
You're absolutely right, but what's it?
Jupiter.
Jupiter, or as you call it, Jupiter. Jupiter throws thunderbolts. So now you know you are facing soldiers from the 14th Legion, who, if you try and resist us, Jupiter will smite you with thunderbolts. And he doesn't care anyway, because we're gonna win. We've got victory on our side. And you might have noticed that the number breaks the rule. You're not supposed to repeat numbers more than 3 times in the Roman system. So that, what should that be? Does anyone know?
XIV.
XIV, excellent. XIV. 10 plus 1 less than 5. But for whatever reason, whenever we see this legion writing its number, it tends to use this format. Kind of like, we don't care about breaking the rules. Anyway, that's the scutum. The scutum is used in combination with the primary weapon of the Roman legionary. That is, of course, you're going to need that, the gladius. Gladius just means sword. Excuse me one moment. He had a senior moment this morning and forgot his sword. He had to borrow mine. Embarrassing, I know. Anyway, the sword and shield combination is the primary weapons of the Roman soldier. So we'll deal with the stick bits in a minute. So what you will be faced with is a guy with a shield wrapped around his body and a short sword. You might notice that the sword has a fairly small hand protection. We're not too bothered because we've got this big shield to protect ourselves with as well. So we're only really striking forward. Now most books tell you that this is a stabbing weapon. That's all it does. Well, no, it's got cutting edges as well. So we can cut and thrust or stab with this. We can very easily go choppy choppy and stabby stabby. That short point there, I'll come back to. But you might notice that there are actually 2 different patterns of sword here. This one here, it's named by historians and archaeologists as a Mainz pattern. It's a slightly broader, wider blade, slightly curving inwards at the middle, and then a long point. The other swords that the guys are carrying are Pompeian pattern. They are straight to sides, a shorter point, and much less metal involved. We think that the Romans simplified the sword pattern to make it cheaper and easier and quicker to manufacture, but they still do the same job. Have we got a volunteer? You put your hand up. What was your name? Ladies and gentlemen, introducing, this was April. Please don't forget her. I shall call you Target. This is my target for today, to demonstrate how soldiers were trained to use their sword. Now I want you to imagine April, the big hairy barbarian, is running towards me with her sword raised, screaming wildly. All I really need to do is wait here, perhaps with the sword levelled like this. She runs onto the sword and swallows it, becoming the very first sword swallower. This of course ruins her day. Or I could strike at her towards her throat. If I do that, I could cut through her windpipe. You'll find it hard to breathe. I could cut through the carotid artery on one side or the other. Doing that, you'll see a big jet of blood coming squirting out. Or, if I wanted to really do some damage, maybe I could go for your heart. Stop your heart. The problem is, if you tap the centre of your chest, you will discover that your ribs fuse together in a place called the sternum, breastbone. It's not easy to get that point in through that big lump of bone. And I only need about that much to hit a vital organ, like your liver, or your kidneys, or your lungs. And you need that bit. So how am I going to get to your heart? Well, it's quite simple. Remember, she's running towards me. She's got her hand raised like this, trying to cut my head off. My friends will see the obvious opening, raise your hand, and I will stab her through the armpit. It goes, slides between the ribs, through her lungs, into her heart, and then I rip it back out again. Look. Or, if you really want to gruesome, I could cut upwards into your rib cage from below, in through the soft pink squidgy bits. Or, gentlemen, if you're squeamish, look away, I could strike at you down there. Trust me, I'm not trying to cut bits off. What I'm aiming for is an artery that runs down the inside of either one of your legs. It's called the femoral artery. If I can cut that and put a hole in it, your heart will pump the blood out of your body. Nice, isn't it? Ba-boom, squirt, ba-boom, squirt, ba-boom. Don't worry though, you'll be dead long before you realise. Nice, isn't it? Good. Run! Thank you, April, thank you very much. You survived, well done. Alrighty, swords and shields, that's the combination we use. But before we get to using those, you might have noticed we've got big sticks with us. These are known as pilums. Selected the old group of them, pilar, and it is a javelin. There's a large wooden shaft on it, a wooden bolt sort of head on the front, and then a long iron tank. This is designed to be thrown. It can be used as a spear, so it's not impossible. You can use equipment in any way you need to. You could use it as a spear, holding onto it, stabbing forward, but ideally we're going to use this as a javelin, as a throwing. Now don't be thinking Olympic level javelin throwing, not 80-90 metres. The soldiers are looking at perhaps up to 30 metres for a first throw. But when you charge forwards towards us, just as Boudicca's army did, the first thing we did was discharge a volley of pilar at the Britons. Some of them, most of them, weren't wearing armour, so a lot of them stuck one of those in them, alright, pierces them. It is intended, however, to pierce through armour and shields. So anyone who was carrying a shield could suddenly find one of these punching through it and possibly into the man behind. Why is he holding the shield? Which would be a bit of a shock, wouldn't it? Imagine, oh, a shield. Ooh. The worst part, however, is you've now got, if you don't get hit it yourself, you've now got a great big lump of wood and iron poking out the front of your shield. It's very, very difficult for you to keep running forward with that hanging out of the shield. You haven't got time to pull it out because you're getting closer and closer to us. The best thing you could probably do at this point is discard your shield. Rather usefully, we now throw a second volley of hula at you. This time you might be as close as 20 metres away. It is going to punch through anyone who is lucky enough to be wearing body armour, such as we've got the chap here, on the male shirt. Some of the Britons were wealthy enough that they could afford to this stuff. But it's designed, this pilum is designed to punch through those shirts and get to the person underneath. Alright, so those are the principal weapons. There are others. If you come up to where we are positioned up there, you'll see bows and catapults and all sorts of machinery that can throw missiles at you, including slingshots and all sorts. But if we now look at what the guys are actually wearing, on their feet are, well, two types of boots. One are the colour guys that most people recognise. And no, they're not sandals. Although we do wear socks to keep our feet warm, so socks and sandals is our gift to you. These are called caligai. They are tough leather boots, and I'll show you the bottoms of them. These are rather useful because if it's on a hot day, your feet stay reasonably comfortably, and if you get that way through water, water goes into boots, water comes back out of boot, and your feet dry as you walk on. The other type of boot, the enclosed boots, well, water goes into boots, water stays in boots, and these two spend the rest of the march going, well, feeling pretty uncomfortable. However, this legion was sent to Britain from Germany, where you get really hot summers and really cold winters. So the soldiers are not dressed as you typically see us in short tunics and bare legs and things like this. They actually adopted the local customs of wearing trousers and enclosed boots. They are very popular in this country, in Britannia. Because any fool can be cold and wet. So it is not uncommon. We actually do know that the 14th Legion, when marching back to Roma, was actually observed by the local people who could not believe that they were actually Roman soldiers. Because these guys had big beards, they had long sleeved tunics, they had long trousers. They did not look like the Mediterranean style soldiers that the locals were familiar with. So, if my guys can show the soles of their feet, or the boots rather, you will now notice that they've got studs on the bottom. Most of these are fairly modern hobnails, which have been worn flat. These two guys, however, you've got the pointy studs on, haven't you?
Yeah.
So, can anybody tell me why we have pointy studs on our boots? Go on then. Yeah. Anything else? Shall we?
Kick people with.
Oh, I like you. Did you hear that? He said to kick people with. He's absolutely right. You imagine if I was to rake down onto your foot with iron studs in my boot. It's going to sting a bit. Yeah, absolutely. Just like football and rugby boots, they are for grip. Because the last thing you want to do is slip up on the battlefield, isn't it? Oh, are you alright? You took a nasty tumble there. You alright? So, the last thing you want to do is fall over, so they give you grip. I mentioned about wearing trousers. One of the other things we can wear are leg wraps, or leg coverings. These are particularly useful in colder weather, but also, when you're marching around the countryside, it's not going to be lovely and mown and flat. it's going to be full of brambles and all sorts of thorns and things. So those will protect your lower legs from injury. They also work to keep your legs warm as well. Alrighty? Moving upwards, underneath all the armour is a tunica or tunic. It is essentially a T-shaped large T-shirt, really. And you'll notice that they're all wearing blue. Now, how many people assume that the Roman army all wore red? Sometimes that's what you're told. Soldiers wore red, and indeed some did. But there's also evidence for green, yellow, blue, white, brown. In fact, I would suspect the army would probably buy tunics for its soldiers undyed. So if the sheep's wool is an off-white colour, that's what the soldier would more likely be wearing. Because to dye the cloth is expensive. Why waste money on something that you actually can't really see once you've got all the armour on and you're carrying a big shield? So, moving one layer up, my soldier here has got a thing that in modern work with modern historians called a sub-armorless, using a sort of Latin phrase. It is a padded garment that goes underneath his mailed shirt. It is intended to protect him against any sharp point that tries to pierce through that shirt. You'll have a hard job getting a point through the shirt, however, they're pretty tough. But just in case, he's got extra padding. If he was struck by a long sword from a Briton, that padding will also prevent any bones getting broken. Well, at least hopefully. To that end, the mail shirts that my two soldiers are wearing both have doubling over the shoulders. Copying a Greek style of armour from one of the earlier years. I've got the same, it comes over the top of the shoulder. It also creates a double thickness at the top. So if you are struck from a blow from the top, it's going to get a bit more padding and more protection. The other set of armour we've got for most of the guys here is the banded or segmented armour. Now, this one, we're fairly confident the Romans called it lorica hamata. We don't, however, know what they call this one, the banded armour. Modern historians call it lorica segmentata, or sometimes laminata. Why? Because if the guys can demonstrate it, you'll notice that the armour itself is held together in pieces, in sections, segments, if you like, all held together on leather straps with buckles and all sorts of bits and pieces to hold it together. It makes it fairly cheap to manufacture, a lot quicker than the mailed shirt, which can take many, many hours. It also makes it keeps it flexible and provides a great deal of extra protection to the soldier carrying it. It was very, very popular. The third type is what I'm wearing, which is lorica squamata, scales. It's sort of, I think of it as sort of a compromise between a mail shirt. This is a much lighter thing than the mail shirt, but it also gives me the protection of the plate or the lames. So that's that. Around the belt, or around the middle, you can see, you'll notice the soldier's belt. Every soldier wears one because it's a symbol of him being a soldier. If these guys take their arms and armour off later, they will put their belts back on because they are proud to be Roman soldiers and they want everybody to know it. You lot are not entitled to wear military belts. Yeah, especially you. Unless, of course, you join the army. Then you'll be a proud soldier and you can wear one. Think about it, it's a good life. Well paid, good food, proper medical treatment. You won't see mum and dad again. You won't have to do what they say either. Oh, okay, cool. You will have to do what I say though. Anyway, the belt. The belt is a military belt is for my soldiers. It actually helps them with carrying the weight of the armour. A mail shirt could be something like 15 kilograms, something like that. And that's quite a lot of weight hanging on your shoulders. But if you're like a rucksack, you put a weight strap around it, you actually can then sit some of that weight on your hips, which just relieves it off the shoulders. The same happens with the segmented armour as well. You can take a lot of the weight off of your shoulders and hang them onto your waist. attached to that belt is an apron, dangly thing, which, contrary to any belief, offers no protection whatsoever. It is purely decorative. We don't know why the Romans introduced it, but it appears, firstly, belts were just ordinary, didn't have this on at all, and then these appeared, then they got shorter over time, and then they disappeared again, and soldiers wore ordinary belts. But the belts are all decorated. They're decorated. If you can afford it, you decorate your belt with the fanciest things you can get, because you're proud to be that soldier. Also attached to the belt is a small knife or dagger. We call it a pugio. It is not really for fighting. It's far too short. However, it is rather useful for doing all those things you need a knife to do, like cutting stuff, like bread and meat and your food. It's also rather useful if you get into a scrap in town, or if you don't want to pay your bar bill. But not all soldiers carried them, although it's probably a useful thing to do. Right, so a pugio. Moving upwards, around the neck you'll see the soldiers are wearing a scarf, or as we call it, a focale. There is some debate about whether Roman soldiers wore scarves. I think there's at least one historian who said, no, it's a reenactor thing because you're all weak, you can't deal with it. But we know from wearing this for sort of several hours, or many hours in sometimes, that stuff can start to grate at the side of your neck. Anything that keeps you comfortable is a good idea. It also works as a sweat rag as well. That's quite useful. But so we're quite happy that Roman soldiers wore them. In fact, there are some images on Trajan's column of soldiers with something round their neck. We can't quite see what it is because it's tucked in beneath, and other soldiers with what looks like a scouting type neckerchief, because it's knotted here and hangs down in front of their armour. So scarves are a possibility. On their head is a helmet, a cassis or galea. It is designed to protect them. We've got 3 different types here. That's the earliest version. We call it a culus type, because a lot of these things, like the swords, they're named for where they're found. So it's a bronze or brass construction. This is a Gallic style of an earlier style helmet, and then the rest of us, I think, are all wearing an imperial Gallic style of a slightly later than that one. But they all share the same properties. They all protect the skull. They all have a brow band on the front. This does not stop you being able to see upwards, but it does help to absorb a blow to the front of your helmet, either by a sword or something like that. It also means that sword probably won't cut into your face. The cheek pieces surround the face. They are designed so that you can still see, you can breathe, and you can scream and shout if you need to. They are tied under the chin with a leather thong. There's a novelist who wrote in Sutton many years ago, wrote a book called The Eagle of the Ninth. And she talks about soldiers being identified by a scar under their chin because of wearing a knot under there. Well, we've all been wearing these things for 20 odd years and we have got no scars to show for it. So that's not really true. I think that was just sort of a novelist thing. However, when you next watch a documentary or a film, check for the soldiers, the Roman soldiers who are marching along or moving around and they haven't got their cheek pieces done up. They're doing that. If you now take your hands and put them to the sides of your face and alternately slap your face, how quickly do you think you're going to get really, really fed up with that happening? Very quick. It's not comfortable at all. So these are always tied up. It makes the helmet secure on your head and, of course, extra protection. At the back of the helmet is a large neck guard. This protects the back of the neck from a blow that might be striking the top of the helmet and slides downwards off away from your vulnerable neck. Over the ears on these helmets are little brass bits that protect the ear. If a sword strikes that, it will bend that down over the ear, your ear stays on and you'll be fine. These two guys don't have that luxury yet because they're earlier type helmets. It doesn't, you've got cutouts, haven't you?
Yeah.
You haven't. Does it make your hearing harder? A little bit, but not enough. Not enough to actually be a problem. So that's a helmet. Like I say, all of these are fitted with helmet frames except for yours, isn't it? It's not that earlier design. Alrighty, happy days? Is there anything I've missed? No? You want to see some put through their paces? Yeah? Right. Signifer? Talks about this standard, it's called the signum. So the next command I'm going to give is ad signa, which means to the standard, and it's the instruction to the soldiers to make their way and line up next with the standard bearer here. Ad signa! Sacramentum rogo, regato genialis, significat et regato exite. This soldier has volunteered to take the military oath. Every year on the Emperor's birthday, a soldier would be volunteered to do this. It is basically swearing an oath of fealty to the Emperor and to the people of Rome. At the end of it, the soldiers will shout back 3 words of Latin. I'm going to encourage you to do the same. So, initium facite.
Ego, Caius Atilius Genialis, Centuriae Pudens, Legionis Quartae Decimae, Gemini Martii Victricis. In verba, Imperatoris, Caesaris, Vespasiani Augusti, Euro Policiorque, me, es, omnibus, qui praepositi, erat dicto audientum foris. Et, quoscumque in hoste subserit, eos esse secutorum, neque signa relictorum, neque quoquam alio modo legis populi Romani perfractorum. Quodsi fidem ergas imperatorum sictatum profellero, usque urandum sic acceptum wheelawero, caput meum Iowe optimo maximo sacrum esto. The 3 words of Latin I'd like you to repeat. First word, idem. Second word, in. That was an easy one, wasn't it? You like the third one then? May. Put them all together and you get idem in May. Well, tell us what it means then. You don't know? Alright, I'll tell you then. He has just sworn an oath to the Emperor of Vespasian to say he will be loyal to the Emperor, defend the people of Rome, no matter what the enemy might be. He will never desert that standard. He's not going to run away like a coward going, oh mummy, they're trying to kill me. He will never desert that standard, he will defend it to the death. And if he breaks any of the rules, then Jupiter, best and greatest, can cut off his head. And you've all shouted, and the same goes for me! So you're all now in the Roman army, subject to our discipline. Right, we'll do a few things. So, take, Hila, Porta, take, Adturga, Werti, take. Simple battlefield drill. We might be worried by the presence of British cavalry on the battlefield. If horsemen threaten the soldiers, bearing in mind there will be a century of 80 soldiers at this point, not just the few you see here,
these guys are going to take a stand. They're going to do, well, in actual fact, you may have heard of a thing called a testudo or tortoise. They're about to do something very, very similar. But we class it as a defence against horses. So the command I'm going to give them in a second is, there's horses there, and counter them. Move to a position to counter them. Equus! Contra equitis facite! Unos! Dos! Tres! Cuatro! By filling the gap, you'll see that what we should have is a wall of shields with an extra roof, if you like, protecting the guys on the ground. Each one of these chaps has now got his javelin pointing forwards. It is angled upwards around about 45 degrees. Ponies or horses of the day are not the tall things you get around to this day and age. They're quite small, around about 14, 15 hands. This is now aiming roughly at the horse's face or chest. That horse is not stupid. The rider might be, but the horse isn't. The horse has just seen a massive wall of shields and colour suddenly appear in front of it. Is it going to run into that? No. Chances are, and we know this, one moment, in turn, take, unos, dos. Just rest, otherwise they're on their knees for it hurts. We know that this works because once in Germany we had a group of riders who said, go on, do it, we'll come at you. As soon as we moved, the horses went, whoa, what's that? And wouldn't come anywhere near, which was slightly embarrassing really because the rider fell on the floor. What happens if you fall on the floor? Absolutely. Take it. Here's awesome signal from today. Rockety. Take. Come on, sister. Take. Do it one more time, facing this way. Equus! Contra equites facite! Unos! Duo! Tres! Cuatro! Go on then. Test it. Throw yourself uselessly at the shield. There's several things that will happen. One, this guy might throw a javelin at you. Ah! Or you accidentally run onto one of these. Or you bounce off the shield and fall on the floor. What happens then? Yeah. In turn. Go on. Go on. Sinistrawsome, working, take. Rockety, take. Sinistrawsome, signal, come with take. Consistent, take. Gladius, destringi, take!
Yo, optional, maximo.
Next! Next! Clearly, with 80 men in there, we will be creating a wall of shields across the front, a wall of shields, or a group of shields over the top, and a wall of shields down each side. So it's very difficult for any of you to throw any missiles at us or anything. That's the plan. There are only 6 of us, so we're going to do it simply and advance forwards to give you an idea of what the testudo does. It can be used statically, but then what's the point? You're not really achieving anything as defeating your enemy. But if we can move forward, we could get to the walls of your hill fort and burst through the front gate, if we're lucky, and kill everyone inside. Or at least civilise you at the point of a sword. So, testudo, unos, duos, tres. Take, in turn, take, tres, duos, unos. By doing that, we can advance on you. Once we get up to the gate, we've still got this formation. Inside this in this group here, we might have engineers with axes ready to move forward, protected by the other soldiers, to smash in those gates to give us access. If you're shooting anything down at us, you've got this solid testudo, this shell of a tortoise that protects us all. It's not so easy to do with carrying javelins. Not impossible, but not easy. Happy days. Right. Quiete! Otiose. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm very conscious I've been waffling on for far too long. So we'll draw a halt to this proceeding. We're all quite warm now as well, as you can probably imagine. I need in need of some water. So I'll thank you for your attention. I thank April for her volunteering. But we've got one last thing we'd like to do. Signifer. Orbem! Orbem Insurrecte! If it all goes horribly wrong, the soldiers will go back to back and defend that standard from anyone who attacks us. So we will be there, lined up. Gladius, Destringi, Te, Yahweh, Optimo, Maximo. Mille hermanos, mille versos, sempre e sempre, che follow me. Mille hermanos, mille versos, sempre e sempre, che follow me. Encampment! Yes! Encampment! Yes! If you didn't know what the chant was, it basically says we've killed thousands of Germans, we've killed thousands of Persians, and we're going to keep on doing it. It's a rather defiant stance if you think about it, but these guys are prepared to defend to the death that standard, the symbol of their honour. How many of you want to be in there? I need some volunteers. Come on in. Anybody else? You must get in there, get in there. Come on in. Come on in, good friend. Come on in.
Joshua, do you...
Come on in, inside. All right. Is that it? Yeah, excellent. All right, mums and dads. Do you want them back? No. No? Well, it has come to our attention you haven't been paying your taxes, you lot. So we're taking this as ransom until you do so. Gentlemen, I Turgum, what you do? Well, your job is to make sure that these people pay their taxes on time. Can you do that?
Pay your taxes.
Not us, then! Yeah. Should we release them? Who said no? That's not very nice, is it? Anyway, gentlemen, well done, you lot. They're not really going to attack you, honest. What? Oh, all right then. Yeah. Stuff. What pointy thing? No? Okay then. Right, you lot then are free to go back to your villages and make sure your people are collecting the taxes, alright? You're now working for us, collecting taxes. We want money off your mums and dads, alright? Okay, off you go then. Would you? Okay, cool. Gladius, Destringi. Take. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for your attention. Sorry we sent them back to you. If you do want to get rid of your children, they have to be around about, well, over the age of 15. Very big and strong, technically from the countryside. Most Roman soldiers actually joined the army around about 17, 18. They will serve for at least 20 years, probably closer to 25. They'll be well paid and looked after, but you may never see them again. And if that doesn't encourage... What? No. There are holy days. Yeah, we worship the gods and things. We've got a great one in December. We call it Saturnalia. We got lots of feasting and gather together with families and give gifts and things. God, you'll love it. Brilliant. Anyway, gentlemen, Jewish ordinaries, Fakite. We're going to pick up our javelins, head back over there. You're more than welcome to come and have another longer chat with us if you so desire. See the other bits and pieces that we've got. But thank you for your attention and good afternoon.
Like to donate to run the festival in future years. It's to deal with tax collection now. Okay. That's alright. Anything great that you see, £20 notes, £50 notes, we'll accept anything. We're not proud. Thank you very much. Okay, fine. Thank you very much. Everybody else just